Welcome to Spoonful of Strength, a podcast for people with chronic illness and the ones who love them, where we talk all things chronic. Here's your host, Rachel and Tina. Welcome to Spoonful of Strength. We are so excited to have you with us today. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about perception, and we're going to talk a little bit about how chronic illness is perceived by society and how that affects you as a spoonie. How have things been going for you, Tina?
Pretty good, although I just spent about 5 minutes trying to figure out where I set one of my pair of reading glasses, and then I finally walked into the bathroom to see if I left them on the counter and looked in the mirror.
They were on your head.
They were on my head. Oh. I swore I reached up, but I must have reached up and touched the spot where they weren't. And so I was like, oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I was thinking of something that I wanted to discuss. We had in our last episode, we had Pam from Rare Patient Voice talking to us, and we were talking a little bit about awareness of chronic illness and raising awareness and that. And I was thinking here, how do you think that society perceives chronic illness, and like how does that affect a person? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I feel like it's becoming more accepted than it used to be.
And I wonder, because Pam was talking about how living with chronic illness is people are becoming more aware of chronic illness because there are Facebook groups, Instagram groups, things like that, where people can share their story, you know, obviously our podcast and things like that. Do you think that that's made a difference in the way chronic illness is perceived?
I think that it has definitely helped with raising understanding of what people, I feel like people now maybe feel they have more of a voice or more of a platform to share on a wider scale of what they're going through, which increases not just awareness, but understanding. Mm-hmm. You know, you're still going to have those, you always have some of those people that think, oh, they're just lazy. They're trying to, they're trying to get a handout, or, they don't want to work. So they want to go on disability, and they really could do stuff. But, I think that's where the importance of sharing your story and sharing your struggles and sharing what your daily life is like.
Yeah.
Helps people have a better understanding and maybe less thought of, oh, they're just taking advantage and being able to stay home and be on disability or whatever. So.
Yeah. And I've seen on Instagram, I can't even believe that this happens, but I can, but to where people who are very open about their daily struggles and things, of people coming on and saying, you're being so dramatic, or they think that people are just wanting the attention versus that person's true intention is to spread awareness about the disease. But it sickens me to see people commenting on somebody's post about you're just wanting to seek attention and not understanding, that took a lot of courage for somebody to share something that might be embarrassing or something that they may not want to share, but have done it in a way to be able to share every part of the illness, the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Right. I think in addition to the positive aspects of social media and the ability to share your stories, also opens it up to those keyboard warriors who are going to say stuff because they can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without people knowing who they are.
Yeah.
And just some people are just simply, they thrive on trying to create chaos.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
Just trying to make other people look bad for one
Yeah.
reason or another. And, the important part is don't stop sharing your stories. Don't
Yeah.
stop sharing what your struggles and what you're going through. And don't stop trying to raise awareness just because there's a few people out there that are hateful,
Yeah.
because you're helping more people than you realize.
Yeah. And I think that, a lot of people, even pre-diagnosis, for those that are sharing the ins and out of their illness, it's a great community to throw it out there so that other people can kind of help. Let's say you're experiencing a weird symptom, you post about it and you can actually get feedback from people who've experienced it, maybe put some anxiety to rest. And, it is a really good platform. And I think that
Right.
the people who truly get in deep and show everything are very courageous, because it's hard to do. I haven't been able to share to the depths of some of the people that I've seen, and I think it's definitely very courageous to do so.
With as far as sharing, even before you're diagnosed, but there's something going on and you don't know,
Yeah.
sharing that gives you, sometimes people who have experienced that, that gives you an opportunity, a space to maybe start digging into, going, oh, well, you know what? They're struggling with the same thing, and this is what they were diagnosed with. And not that I'm encouraging, the keyboard diagnose, don't go to, I'm not talking about the Google doctor, but it gives you at least maybe a starting point of going, oh, hey, you know what? Maybe this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And a prime example of that was when, I think I had talked about this before with my newfound fear of dentists lately, was when I was having a dental procedure and they had set me up, like everything was fine. And then they sat me up in the chair and they walked out, to go do whatever they were going to do while I was sitting there waiting for them to come back in. And my face started feeling weird. And so I grabbed my phone and, held it up to do a selfie. And I noticed that one side of my face was swelling up. Like my eye was almost completely swollen shut.
Mm.
It was out of the blue. And so the dentist came in and I'm like, or no, I think it was one of the techs came in and was like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but this. And they're like, oh, that's weird. And ran to get the dentist. It was like, I think he was new to the practice anyway. And he came in and then he saw me and then he went and got the other dentist, the owner of the practice. And they were trying to tell me that it was an allergic reaction to, you must be having an allergic reaction to the Novocaine. And I'm like, I was just here yesterday and had Novocaine without any issue. But then I thought, well, I also had my Keytruda treatment that morning, the same morning that this happened. So I was like, well, maybe I just overloaded my body and it was just having a weird reaction between the Novocaine the day before, more Novocaine today, and the Keytruda. Like maybe that had something to do with it. And they watched me to make sure that it didn't get any worse, gave me some Benadryl, and then sent me home. So they let me drive home with Benadryl and a big swollen face. So I was like, okay. I'm like, well, this is really weird. I remember posting about it on Facebook, and I posted a picture on Facebook. I was like, okay, my body, just keeps doing all this weird stuff now lately. And a friend of mine, one of my neighbors, happened to see it. And he messaged me and he saw it late at night. I was already asleep, so I didn't see it until the next morning. And he's like, if you're still up, you need to get to the emergency room because that is not an allergic reaction. That is an air embolism that's going on. And that's very dangerous. So you need to get on IV antibiotics because that could introduce bacteria in your system and it could be really bad. So if I hadn't shared that picture, just going, oh, look at me, now I've got a weird, suddenly out of the blue, even though I was fine the day before, reaction to Novocaine. Like when I went to get it x-rayed, or no, when I went to the ER and they did x-rays, the air embolism was down right outside, like surrounding one of my lungs. So they were concerned that I could have ended up with a collapsed lung. So don't ever be afraid to share your story or what you're going through, because you never know who is out there that recognizes the potential of what actually might be going on versus what you think might be going on.
Yeah. Yeah, boy. Wasn't it like a week or so that
Oh, it
you,
took forever for it to go back down. Yeah.
yeah.
They kept me overnight. Well, originally they gave me IV antibiotics in the emergency room, and then they sent the x-rays over to an oral surgeon and consulted with him. And initially he was like, well, as long as it's, going down and, you've treated her, then there's no reason to keep her. And then he looked at the x-ray again and noticed the big air pocket around my lung. And he's like, actually, no, you don't get, because remember, I'm like texting you all going, almost out of here. And, and then, yeah. And then I'm like, no, they're keeping me overnight because they were afraid that I would end up with a collapsed lung. I am glad that they did, because I probably would have had Dave take me back later that night, because I had gotten up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and I was feeling like a lot of pressure around that lung. So knowing that that was something I was supposed to be keeping an eye on, and I was having a little bit of trouble, not severe, but a little trouble breathing, I probably would have had him take me back there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, who are we kidding? I probably wouldn't have, me and go into the hospital when I should,
Yeah.
but I may have.
I
I
have
would like
not,
to think that I would have made the responsible choice and told him to take me back. But
yeah. But you never know. You would have probably not thought of going to the dentist if you had, I mean, you probably wouldn't have put those two together and may not have
exactly.
gone. And that could have led to, a lot more issues.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could have ended up having to call an ambulance. I could have ended up, I could have ended up with a full body infection. In fact, there's somebody that I remember years ago, one of Dave's coworkers had gotten, it was something, a similar situation where they routine dental work, and they somehow there was some bacteria that had gotten introduced into his system, and it was actually touch and go for a while. It hit him pretty hard. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I definitely feel for the people that are not diagnosed. I, remember being in that sort of panic of, I think I know that what's going on, but I'm not sure. And you have all these symptoms come up, and I never reached out to anybody via Facebook or Instagram, just because at that time I didn't really realize there was such a community around MS. And so that would have been beneficial to do so. So going back to how society views us, was there a perception before, in your case, your cancer diagnosis, did you have a perception about what cancer looked like? And did that change once you were actually a cancer patient?
that's a good question. I think that my perception stayed the same, but mainly because even though I was very, very young and only have, small memories of what our dad went through with his cancer. I think I was, like 5 or 6 at the time. So I remember him being really sick and all of that. But um yeah, I guess part of it is I think a lot of people think those that are going through cancer treatments, or you automatically, you're going to lose your, if you have chemo, you're going to lose your hair, and that's not necessarily true. Now mine did eventually. I got it just thinned out to the point where I just went and had it shaved.
Yeah.
But I also had a very thin hair. But different drugs have different impacts, and so if you're on a chemo drug, that not all chemo drugs are going to cause hair loss, so, or hair thinning or that type of thing. So I think the notion of, the person with no hair um walking around must be that doesn't look healthy. It is probably somebody with cancer, but you never know. It could be, somebody that you would never even realize that, I have plenty of friends that have gone through cancer treatments, or are currently going through treatments that, unless they had told me that they were going through that, I probably wouldn't have even realized what they were going through.
Yeah.
Did you know Spoonful of Strength is not just a podcast? We have an Instagram page called Spoonful of Strength where you can see clips of our upcoming episodes, learn about different illnesses, and we share other people's stories. We also have an Etsy shop where you can shop for clothing such as t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies. You can find candles and mugs and tumblers and blankets. You can find it all. We support all chronic illnesses, and the great thing is, if you find a t-shirt in our shop for multiple sclerosis, we can change that for lupus or Ehlers-Danlos or any other illness that you need. Everything is customizable in our shop. Use the code podcast for 20% off your entire order.
How about you? As far as, because you were following along from a distance, of course, from Indiana with my journey, and but you all were, our sister chat was pretty much the first ones to be dragged into the know when that came about.
Yeah. I think that because I know you shared your journey through Facebook, but I don't, do you feel like that you shared a lot? Because looking back, like, I think when we did our first couple episodes and talking a little bit, when we were kind of interviewing each other and hearing our stories, I don't think I realized at the time just everything that you went through. And so I wonder, like, on your end, do you feel like that you shared a lot, or do you feel like you shared just the important things? Because looking back, I'm not sure that
I shared. Remember sharing.
Yeah.
I shared a lot. I don't know if I necessarily shared everything. It was just, it had gotten to the point, there were so many people to keep in the loop that, I mean, other than immediate, I had a small group of people that were the first ones to know. And then there's all the Facebook friends that, I would update when I was able.
Yeah.
But eventually I feel like I shifted in starting to share my struggles more
Yeah.
versus just the black. Originally, I feel like I was mostly just the black and white.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask.
This is what I'm going through. This is what this is our plan. This is, and then I started realizing that's because the feedback that I would get from people, oh, you're so strong. I like, especially people who would have that had gotten diagnosed after me, but theirs was maybe, a minor, like in their mind, a stage 1 minor, like, all they needed was surgery and no other follow-up and didn't have to go through everything. And I started getting a lot of people, or not a lot, but some people that would comment and go, oh, I feel like I shouldn't even say anything because mine is so minimal compared to what you're going through.
Yeah.
And you're always so positive and aren't struggling. And I feel bad about struggling with something that's not nearly as bad as yours. And that was when I realized, well, the one thing I always would tell people is my cancer is not any more important or less important than yours, and your journey is not any more or less important than mine. They're each our journeys.
Right.
But I realized that I was kind of doing somewhat of a disservice of not letting people see my struggles too.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree on that because, yeah, I can see that because at the beginning, you were very much like, we've got this and we're going to beat this and this is what we're doing and this is the plan and let's go. And, that is true. And that can be, even from just like a chronic illness point of view, you may have asthma and somebody else may have epilepsy, and to compare illnesses to each other is not like, we don't know what we all go through, and chronic illness is chronic illness, and somebody with asthma may have life-threatening asthma of sorts of that could potentially land them in the hospital. Or but I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, to compare, well, she's got it better than I do, or I'm far worse than they are. To compare is just very difficult because we don't know what the other person is going through. But I agree that, if you're going to share, you've got to share the good, the bad, and all of that, to be able to really connect and understand.
And you also have to be okay with, I lost some, Facebook friends, I believe, from that. I think maybe some people just couldn't handle, or, seeing me go through that, and that was their choice. But, also in the back of my mind, it's like, they were Facebook friends,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like, it's not, they weren't close personal friends. And if it was too much for them, that was fine. It didn't make me adjust what I was sharing, because it was helping more people than it was than the people that I was losing from it.
Yeah. Going back to the kind of the original question of your perception of cancer prior to
And
being
prior and then,
Yeah.
well, there was, yes, a bit. I used to always say, before I was diagnosed, I used to always say, cancer, the thought of cancer doesn't scare me that much, because because our dad survived, 26 years with one lung. I know it can be fought. And then I got that diagnosis. I was like, okay, well, that was a lie. It does scare me a little bit. I mean, how can it not?
Yeah.
But it definitely still, it didn't consume me.
Yeah.
So, but I guess that in that regard, the perception changed a little bit. But even then, like even now, I don't obsess with the thought of it coming back. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I've learned, especially in the last year or so, is if I'm for some reason, starting to worry that it may end up coming back, that to me is telling me that I'm doing something that I'm like subconsciously worried is impacting my health. So then I
Mm-hmm.
try to relook at going, okay, where are these feelings coming from? Because obviously, if I'm worried that it may be coming back, if that's, slipping into my mind, then that means somewhere subconsciously I'm feeling like I'm not taking care of myself the way I should be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that I'm sure I've shared this before, but my perception of MS before getting diagnosed was completely different. I knew nobody with MS. I wasn't friends with anybody with MS on Facebook or Instagram. Like, I knew nothing about it. I knew what Google told me about MS and what that looked like. And I was diagnosed in October of 2015, and I did my first MS walk in April of 2017. And it wasn't until then that I realized what MS really looked like.
Right.
And I was too scared to do the MS walk the first year in 2016. I just wasn't sure I was ready for it. I was kind of living in this bubble of like, I'm strong. I can, it's going to be fine. At that point, I wasn't completely disabled. And I lived in that bubble of, we'll just wait and see what happens, and not really thinking about the future. And it was at that first MS walk that I looked around and I saw people who looked completely healthy. I would never have guessed that they had
Yeah.
MS. And I
Right.
saw people who were in wheelchairs, and it was kind of a scary experience, actually,
Mhm.
because MS in particular is a beast. Nobody's story is the same. Everybody has different each person has different levels of disability and things like that. But it was at that point that I realized this is bigger than what I have acknowledged it to
Mhm.
be.
Right.
And I think I went into it not really being impacted much with it, and now doing the MS walk every year except for the 2 COVID years. I enjoy doing it, and but I think my perception was completely different than what I'm living right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, I feel like you can see, like, you can read that, yeah, people become disabled, you can be in a wheelchair, all of that, but it doesn't really hit you until you're like going that path, going
Right.
down that road. I've been living with MS. um I mean, I was diagnosed in 2015, but I started experiencing symptoms in 2009, so that's quite a
Right.
few years, and I'm starting to feel like I'm racing down that hill of becoming more disabled, and it looks a lot different than what I had imagined,
Right.
prior to that. So um I don't share a lot um on my personal page.
Mhm.
Has a lot to do with just family and stuff, but I'm trying to share a little bit more on the Spoonful page just to find that connection with people.
With people that are
Yeah.
similar.
We thought we'd take a brief pause in our podcast to enjoy what I call a mini mindful moment. Now, mindfulness is, if you're not familiar with the concept, that is the practice of just being present in this particular moment in time. We're not thinking about things that have happened in the past. We're not thinking of things that are coming up. We're simply in this here and now. So I encourage you to join us on a little mindful moment here as I guide you through how to quiet your mind. One of my favorite techniques of that is simply become focused on my breath. So if you settle in, close your eyes, try to quiet your mind, and simply focus on taking a nice deep breath in through your nose, feeling it all the way down from your diaphragm all the way up, and hold it. And then release that breath through the mouth. One big, long breath out. And there should be no other thoughts going through your mind. Just simply focus on breathing in. Nice deep breath in through the nose and hold it. And deep breath out through your mouth, releasing all that tension in your body. Feeling yourself connected to nothing more than your body and your mind. You hear any outside noises, just simply push them away. Only concentrate on that breath. Deep breath in, hold it, and a nice long breath out. And if you find your mind starting to wander, just bring it back to focusing on nothing more than the process of those deep breath in all the way through the very bottom of your pit of your stomach, all the way up into your lungs. Nice and deep breath, and hold it. And a nice deep breath out. Simply quieting your mind and focusing only on those nice deep breaths in and a long breath out. And then take just a couple seconds, a few more breaths on your own. I won't guide you through these. If you find your mind starting to wander, just bring it right back to just focusing on the breath and nothing more. Give you a couple seconds to do a few deep breaths. And on your last exhale, nice deep exhale, and open your eyes and come back to the present moment and join us back on the remainder of our podcast.
Yeah, that's been good for me, I think.
You do have the invisible illnesses too.
Right.
I mean, like I remember let's talk about the struggle that you had when you finally got that handicap tag.
Yeah, that was a hard one because I had gotten the handicap tag around the same time that I got my cane. And I was in physical therapy. I do physical therapy for my MS about once a year, depending on how I'm doing, maybe twice, just to work on strength building and things like that. And my physical therapist had just said, why are you not using a cane? You're having more trouble walking and you're having falls. And so she was the one that kind of got that ball rolling. I didn't use my cane from the time that I got it, and same for my handicap placard. I did not use it for about 30 days. And I remember my husband saying, why are you not using your handicap placard? And I said, I'm not ready for it yet. And of course he's going, well, what do you mean you're not ready for it? I mean, who wouldn't want a handicap thing to hang from your rear view mirror to be able to get good spots, at places. And to me, it was a lot more extensive than that. It wasn't, I'm going to use this so that I can get the best spots, going to the grocery. To me, it was admitting that I needed the close spots.
Right.
And the cane was very similar in that it was more of a physical representation of the things I couldn't do or the things I needed help with. Yeah. And that was hard, using my cane in front of my family the first time. Mm-hmm. It was still to this day, this is so absurd because I've had my cane and my placard since 2018, I believe. Mm-hmm. To this day, when I park in a handicap spot, I still wonder, just because of my age. Now, I'm not a young 20-year-old, I'm mid 40s. But to this day, I still wonder, are people looking at me and going, why does she need this? Or, or am I taking a spot away from somebody who needs it more, or anything like that. It's so weird to same thing with my
Right.
scooter. When I use my scooter at the store, it's like, how are people perceiving me? I got to tell you a story. This completely made my day. A couple months ago, I was at the store zooming around, and I passed by this lady who had, I'm assuming, her daughter with her, and her daughter was maybe 10, 12. And we just crossed paths, and she looked right at me and all she said is, "You're so beautiful." And
Oh,
I literally, I said, you are so sweet. And we passed, and that was it. And I told my husband, I said, it changed my day. It changed, like, because I don't feel beautiful. I don't get up and put makeup on because I don't have the energy. I don't, I'm in sweats a lot of the times because it's easier. Throw your hair back in a ponytail. And that one gesture warmed up my heart a little bit and made me feel good.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Just a simple little compliment.
Yeah. Yeah. Which,
Mhm.
I think about paying that forward and trying to do the same just because of the impact it had on me. But think about people perceiving you as, why are you in a scooter? Why are you using a cane? Why are you walking funny? Why this or why that? And sometimes it can get to you a little bit to feel like you're broken and everybody's looking at you. And the same will come when I eventually, I'm in the works for a electric wheelchair to use, and all those feelings will come back, um, as that progresses.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a hard one.
Yes. Yeah.
All the feelings
Um,
that go with it, because it's not just as simple as getting a tag or a cane or anything like that. There's a
right.
lot more.
Right. It's a step. Like every new, um, and I can see this as a struggle of every new item or accessory or whatever you want to
Mobility
call
aid.
them. It's yeah,
Yeah.
mobility. Yeah, for that'll help with your mobility. Everything that's a mobility assistant is a new reminder that it's progressing.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure that's what for anyone with any type of progressive illness is, you try to hold off of taking that next step for the next level of assistance that you're going to need, because then that's admitting that even though I can see where it can be a struggle with knowing that's going to help you with a better quality of life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's tough to admit that you need that next step
Yeah.
of support.
Yeah, and I've always been one to worry too much about what people think of me, even pre-diagnosis. And so I think if you're self-conscious about yourself anyway, then it's just more difficult. People could perceive it as a luxury and or being lazy or anything like that, when in reality it's devastating. It can be devastating to feel as if you're trying to stop the train that is, MS and
Right.
everything. But did you mentioned that you um shaved your head for your cancer. Did you ever have times when you were out and about, or hesitancy to share a picture, anything like that? Like, did that change anything in you, as far as, because again, not to compare them, but similarly, shaving your head is a physical way of being able to see that cancer that maybe people walking through the store see you, maybe they wouldn't guess that, but that's did you have a hard time with that?
I did at first. I felt very self-conscious going out there. And maybe it was that perception of looking back, because it's like, sorry, self-conscious, because I shared, like we were just talking about how much I shared my journey and was so open with everything. So why did physically I felt self-conscious about going out? And I think now that I, ponder it a bit, I didn't want the sympathy, so to speak, like going out there going, oh, she must be going through that. So I wore a lot of hats or, scarves, mostly ball caps, because, even with the scarves, then to me, that's obvious that, she's got that. Wear a ball cap, it, unless I take it off, it's just going to look like I have really short hair.
Yeah.
And I remember, I still somewhat regret this, but for some reason so that year, 2018, when I was going through everything, in November, friends of ours had gotten married, were getting married. And that was not too long after I had actually finally broke down and shaved my head. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to this wedding. I want to dress nice. And here I am with like, a shaved head. And so I went and got a wig. And like it was a cute wig, like the style, like I felt like the style met with me.
It was cute.
Yeah, it was a cute wig, but now looking back, I'm like, I look at those pictures and I'm just like, that doesn't even look like me. Why? What was I thinking? I would have been better off just like everybody, majority of the people that were at the wedding knew me anyway and knew what I was going through. So why did I feel this need to have hair at this event? But to be, I for some reason I felt like I needed to look normal.
Yeah. I hate that word, normal.
I know. What is different. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also you were in a time where you were also losing weight. So you were very thin,
Yeah.
And, so.
Yeah. And so maybe that I also was very self-conscious about too, of how tiny I was, like, very, very skinny.
Yeah.
I think I dropped down. Yeah, I dropped down pretty far. I think I dropped about 40 pounds.
You dropped 40 pounds?
Yeah, I think I dropped about 40 pounds through all that. And then I started gaining it back, but then I started having that colitis issue and ended up I dropped even lower than my female weight when I was going through that. And so maybe that was part of where that wig came from too, is that I was already feeling like I didn't look like myself. So I wanted to like throw hair on or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now here I am trying to get my hair to grow out. I want to this is the longest I think I ever remember having it, because I'm just curious about how it's going to grow in after I've lost it. And, but I'm sitting here contemplating about going and getting a short pixie cut again, because it was kind of nice not to have to fuss with my hair too much.
Yeah. What were you more self-conscious about, the hair or the weight? Or same,
probably the weight, only because and it's, as somebody who's struggled with weight, like too much weight for a long time, and I had weight loss surgery and I don't know, sometime when did I have it? I think I'm coming up on 16 years now.
Yeah.
This month, I think it's going to be 16 years. Is so it's just as hard to hear the comments about being too thin and like needing to eat more than it is to hear the comments about eating less and needing to lose weight, and I think that's one of the things that, like, a lot of people with chronic illness are impacted one way or another. There's some drugs that you take, for certain illnesses that can cause you to gain a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And, and so that's a struggle. You don't know where their struggles are coming from. And then, in my situation, like with not just the chemo, but the colitis, where I was losing weight and I could not gain weight, simply because, like, especially with the colitis, is I was eating okay, but then I would end up it wasn't staying with me long enough. Long
Yeah.
enough to actually take the calories in. And that's
Yeah.
just as frustrating, especially when you look at yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm too skinny, I'm skin and bones and already not feeling healthy. And then to have comments of people to comment that you're looking too thin
Yeah.
is that's difficult too, because you're already feeling self-conscious about how you are. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is the one thing that I'm more self-conscious, and most people don't even realize it until I point it out. And then they're like, yeah, now I keep seeing it. It was when they placed my port, they had problems with getting my port in normally. So they ended up having to run the line down, because normally it's placed just in your chest and it's run, and you can't really, other than if I was wearing like a tank top or something, you'd be able to tell that the port is there because it's, a big bulb there. But they had to run the line down my neck. So like if you look at me, it looks like I have like a big vein in my neck, and it's actually my port line.
Mm.
And that's one of the biggest things to this day I'm still very self-conscious about. I hate looking in the mirror and seeing it. But like most people, if in chit chat, I don't point it out, but if we're talking and I mention my port and then I'll point that out and they'll be like, oh, I never even noticed it. So I know people don't really, or some people will be like, oh, I noticed that. I was wondering what it was, but they don't ask about that.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I'm actually still to this day very self-conscious. Why I'm always trying to convince my doctor to
Take it out.
to take the port out,
Well,
even though she won't do it.
is it hard to have that port knowing that you've been cancer free for so long that it's a reminder of what you're not going through right now?
Uh, Not really. I think
Yeah.
it's more of just I have to go and still have it flushed every 8 weeks. I think it's somewhere between 8 and 10 weeks. I have to go in and flush it. But the advantage of that is I usually try to tie it into when my oncologist wants blood work, and they can draw my blood from there, so then I don't have to get stuck with
Oh, okay.
that. So it's more of just I don't know, maybe it is part, now that I think about it, maybe a big part of it is that taking that next step of certainty.
Mhm.
By not removing it means she's not certain yet
Yeah.
that I'm okay.
Yeah.
But even though I know that I've always known that that end goal is that magical 5 year clear mark of, in general, that's generally when they'll consider you in remission. Right now they're just considering it, no evidence, no active cancer, no NED, no evidence of disease. But again, I'm not in remission, so to speak,
Right.
right
Right.
now.
And
So
going back real quick to when you talked about your weight, I'm on the other end. I've gained a little bit through the last couple years, but isn't it interesting how I mean, I don't think you would ever walk up to somebody and say, you need to lose weight,
right,
you know, but people will walk up to you and say, oh, you need to gain weight. You need to eat.
right. You need to eat more. You need to
Yeah.
eat.
Yeah.
Right,
And it's
right.
like, well, why is that okay?
Yeah, that's
You know?
not that, you don't know what their struggles are, and that was just
Right.
frustrating. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I did go through a period where I lost a lot of weight. I
Mm-hmm.
lost probably 50 pounds, and I'm not
Yeah,
even, yeah. And I felt great because I'm normally I'm on the heavier side, but at that point I was struggling with so much stomach issues. And, now I'm on the other side where whether it be medication or just not being able to be as active, I am heavier than I want to be. And so, but I just think that, that's very interesting to, uh, as a society, to think it's okay to say, oh, you're too thin, and you need to eat more, or, whatever it may be, because again, that was a big issue for you as well as I'm sure a lot of people, of wanting to gain weight and not being able to. So, I don't know. I just thought that was very interesting.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Join us on Thursday, where can you believe, Rachel, that it's going to be our season finale?
No, it feels like we're like 5 episodes in, maybe. I think it's just been like so fast that
I know
um,
every now and then something will pop up on my Facebook that shows that we started talking about doing this podcast like back in March. So it doesn't
yeah,
seem like it's been that long.
no, I mean that's 5 months ago. But I'm excited for the finale. We've got a lot of stuff to share with you and kind of recapping our season, and then we'll take some time to recoup and bring some better ideas to season 2.
I'm already looking forward to what we've been talking about possibly for season 2 and some
Yeah.
ideas that we've been bouncing around. So
Yes.
oh,
It'll be
I know the
exciting.
break is much needed, but I'm excited about the next season too. So tune in on Thursday when we wrap up and highlight our season 1. It's a super fun episode. So be sure to tune in on Thursday where we wrap up our first season, but we're also going to be announcing our winner of the hoodie contest. So you don't want to miss out on seeing if you are our lucky winner. Have a good couple days until we chat with you again.